Empire magazine's Kim Newman looks back at this film as witty and charming, while looking good and proving quite memorable. Vincent Canby of the New York Times says it's one of the few good, truly funny American political comedies ever made. And about its star, Letterboxd user Cherry Film says Robert Redford looks like a double patty cheeseburger with large fries and a medium Coca-Cola at McDonald's in this. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. On this episode of Ruined Childhoods, we decide the fate of the candidate.
Sequel. Reboot. Which one will it be? It's the Ruined Childhoods podcast.
Greetings, Starfighters! It's that time for Ruined Childhoods. I'm Dan, and with me is John. How are you, John?
I'm doing okay, Dan. I feel like it's becoming more and more clear that you have not planned at all what you're about to say before we start recording.
No, John, honestly,
and it could be the same thing every single time, too.
No, I mean, look, it evolves, it devolves, it revolves. For those who need a little context here, not that I'm going to reference this at all, but John is basically recording in a shack or a shed. Really,
it's
more
a shed.
It's a shed. It's not a shack. Sounds very Unabomber. And even though that is kind of how it looks.
Okay, the Unabomber had a Wet Hot American Summer alternative poster print behind him when he was working on his little projects. Little projects.
Well, obviously the interior decoration was different, but I imagine this is you know what? Actually, I think I'm trying to remember where it was, where I saw a recreation of or maybe it was, I'm trying to remember if it was the FBI museum or the Newseum.
Okay.
Where I saw it was somewhere, it was a museum and it was in Washington, D.C. Anyway, long story short, John's in a shed, so he's also really cold. It is a wintry day in the Pacific Northwest.
Winter solstice.
It is the a good winter solstice to you all.
Hell yeah.
I hope that you are observing safely without any type of sacrifice. So, I know how some people get on these solstices. Solstice.
You know how people get on the solstice.
Yeah, on the solstice, things get a little wacky. So that could explain a lot today, and I'm going to use that as an excuse,
Fair. Well, Dan, I have to tell you, we're recording this. It's the end of December, and this is the time when the kind of the big awards-worthy movies are coming out.
Prestigious film.
I know. I'm really excited to go see The Whale in a couple of days. It has its controversy. We've talked about Brendan Fraser and our deep love for him going back to the beginning.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I mean. That aside from that one, I have really been enjoying some of the other ones that I've seen. I didn't love The Fabelmans. Didn't really care for that one. Did you see The Fabelmans?
I have not seen it yet.
Okay.
I mean, all due respect to Steven Spielberg, it's kind of of all the films out there, and I should add that a lot of the movies that I've been watching are movies that have been streaming just on subscription services that I already pay for. So, at some point I'll watch The Fabelmans, and I'm sure it's really great and touching. And it's kind of, I imagine it being akin to an American version of Cinema Paradiso, but kind of that vibe.
Here's what I'll say about it. This is just my opinion.
Okay.
This movie would not have been made had it not been made by Steven Spielberg. And that's not just because it's biographical, but the story itself, it's if any other director came up with this kind of thing where it's this, it's about his family and about growing up with this complicated relationship with his parents who are going through a divorce, but it's also about him coming up and how filmmaking changed his life. I don't know. It definitely was just like, would anybody relate to this had it not been for the Steven Spielberg of it all? And what's interesting is I also watched the movie Armageddon Time, which it's not about filmmaking. Have you watched Armageddon Time?
No, but this is what I want. You are having the conversation that I want to have once I have seen The Fabelmans and Armageddon Time.
Sure.
Because to me, it feels like Armageddon. I don't know. I'm curious to know which one tells the more like worthwhile story. Like, I guess because it sounds like Fabelmans is just kind of like, hey, yes, I would like to watch a movie about how Steven Spielberg became, Steven Spielberg. But it sounds like Armageddon Time is not as much about being James Gray.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that Armageddon Time, which for anybody who doesn't know what Armageddon Time is about, it's a semi-autobiographical story, if not completely autobiographical. I don't know exactly the deal there, but it's about a kid who's growing up in Queens. He and his family are Jewish, and he goes to public school, and his older brother goes to a private school, and he's not a good student. His head is in the clouds. He cares more about art than academia. And because of that, he kind of wanders off and he gets into some trouble with another classmate who happens to be black. And there's a lot of things that you see where it's just like, oh, he is being singled out because he is black. And then this kid who, I don't know about if identifying with his friend is really a thing, but it's more of just like they form a really close friendship. They have a lot in common, and that becomes interrupted when the one kid goes and joins his brother in private school after his public school suggests to his parents that he goes into the special education program. And then he's in a situation where it's people who are very racist. They're not outwardly anti-Semitic, at least in the same way that the school kids are in The Fabelmans. But he has a problem with their racism and is just completely against being in this private school where also everybody is, and this takes place, it's during the presidential election in which Reagan was elected. So there's a lot of like pro-Reagan messaging, and there's appearances by Fred Trump. Not like the actual Fred Trump, an actor portraying Fred Trump, and like Jessica Chastain plays, is it Mary Lynn Trump? Donald Trump's sister, who was she an attorney like general or judge? Judge. But who has, granted, spoken out against her brother.
And isn't her daughter who's... Her
daughter, Mary Trump, is the one
very outspoken
about being anti-Donald Trump. So yes. I feel like it tells a grittier version. I mean, I think that the problem that both of these movies have is that most of the family that's cast is not Jewish, playing people who are Jewish, which is just an ongoing problem. I mean, Paul Dano and Michelle Williams are excellent actors, and I love them, but they don't exactly...
They're a bit goyish.
They're a bit goyish. And Jeremy Strong is a fantastic actor on Succession, but doesn't quite read as Jewish in a very strong way, similarly to Anne Hathaway, who's the mother. And also you have Anthony Hopkins as the boy's grandfather.
Right.
And
I saw
and
that.
It's also just like, if these weren't identifiable, recognizable actors, then maybe you could get away with casting non-Jews in the role, but it just becomes more prevalent and it stands out a little bit more. That's not what I'm here to talk about, though.
But wait, hold on a second. So now I'm also trying to figure out, I'm like, which one is it with Judd Hirsch?
Judd Hirsch is...
He's in one of them, right? Isn't he in one of them? He's in something.
Judd Hirsch, maybe he is in Armageddon Time, but Anthony Hopkins is the grandfather. Judd Hirsch... See, I've been watching a lot of movies lately, so I'm trying to figure out like which one did I see him in.
Oh, he's in The Fabelmans. He's in The
Fabelmans. Okay. Oh yeah, he's like the uncle. Yeah, but it's very brief. It's very, very brief, his appearance. Yeah,
and also Seth Rogen is in...
Seth Rogen, right. So you have your Jewish representation, Judd Hirsch, Seth Rogen.
And
Seth
Spielberg, I guess, and Spielberg himself.
And Spielberg himself, yeah. I mean, Seth Rogen was very good in the role that he was playing. I had no problems. I enjoyed seeing him doing something.
See, if there was no... I'm sorry to interrupt you, but if there was no clearer evidence that the Jews do not control the entertainment industry... It would be 100% The Fabelmans, 100% accurate.
Yeah. Anyway,
it'd be like Adam Goldberg would be in it. I don't know who else. I was thinking of The Hebrew Hammer recently.
Wow. I don't know if Adam Goldberg's getting cast in too much lately, but I don't know.
But he's great, and I love The Hebrew Hammer. So anyway, sorry.
There you go.
Continue.
So I also watched White Noise, which I really enjoyed. Adam Driver. What's up?
Have you ever read the book?
I have not read the book, but I am very intrigued because I'm glad I didn't read the book before watching it because I was just like, what is happening?
Right. And you know what? There's a lot of movies that I've seen based on books that I've read where I've kind of been like, man, I would have had more of that reaction had I not read the book. I mean, and not to focus on David Fincher, but Gone Girl and Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, are probably the two biggest examples of that. Like, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, I thought was awesome filmmaking, but I'm like, man, I would have been on the edge of my seat had I not read the book. And I've read White Noise, but it's been a while since I've read it. So there are a few things I really remember about it. And then seeing the trailers for it have made me, kind of see like, I think they might have done a good job with it.
I will say that I think that the way that Noah Baumbach directed it and the way that the actors performed it, Greta Gerwig, Adam Driver, Don Cheadle, I feel like they presented it in a way that doesn't feel like any other movie. There's a certain cadence that the performances have where I feel like it feels a little bit more like maybe a play, or it makes sense for it to be like, very outwardly an adaptation of a book, because there's just something about them that doesn't feel quite of our existence.
Right. It just judging from the commercials I've seen, and really, I don't think I've even sat through like a full trailer for it, but just from what I've seen, it looks like it really does honor the spirit of the book and the humor of the book, and I'm excited to see it. I'm looking forward to seeing it. I think it's going to be streaming.
It's coming to Netflix,
soon. Yeah, I don't know. There's like nothing. I have to say this about recent movies, and then I'd like to talk about a couple of things I've seen recently.
Yeah.
I mean,
I know we're completely going long. We will get to the candidate.
We're going to get to the candidate. We're going to get there. I've got a fun surprise in store. I don't know. I might have just hyped it up too much, but all right. Anyway, so really frustrated because the last time I went to see a movie in the theater, happened to be with John and our other brother, Scott, in Austin, Texas, where we saw the film 1917. And
that's really the last thing you saw in a theater.
That is the last thing I saw in the theater. And that is due to both, COVID and COVID anxiety, but also nothing. There hasn't been as much to draw me out. And maybe it's just I don't have the time for 3-hour movies. And there are very few things that could draw me out. And actually, the irony of that statement is the movie that came closest to getting me to go to a theater was when just before my son was born in April, like I think sometime in March, our local theater was playing the remastered, restored version of The Godfather, celebrating its 50th anniversary, much like today's film, The Candidate. And and I was like, you know what? I've never seen The Godfather on the big screen. Like, I have it on Blu-ray. Like, I've watched it, good quality, but I would love to go see The Godfather. But it ultimately came down to like, man, between everything else I have going on, I can't spend that. Like, I could put The Godfather on at home and do other things while I'm watching it because I've, seen it 20 times before. But there were a few movies that I was looking forward to seeing, and I would say one in particular, I was really looking forward to the film adaptation of Matilda the musical.
Right.
Which saw on Broadway back in, I think, 2013. Loved it. My daughter Chloe, who's 8.5, has, memorized
the Fellini age.
Most of it. Yes. Fabulous. So anyway,
sorry, I totally distracted you. I could tell that you can't remember what you were going to say.
No. I'm back on track. The last movie she saw in a theater was Frozen 2.
Wow.
So, we're talking around the same time, and she's not really into it because, that was also the first movie she saw in a theater, because we tried to go see Mary Poppins Returns, but something, got screwed up with the projector, and I don't know. It was a disaster. And I was really excited, and I was all ready. I'm like, oh, great. So Matilda, it's going to be streaming on Christmas. So on December 25th, on Netflix, but it's coming out in theaters on the 9th. And I'm like, I'm going to take her out of school early one day and surprise her and take her to see Matilda in the movie theater. It's going to be fucking awesome. And, I live in Seattle, and Matilda played nowhere near Seattle.
That sucks.
Nowhere near. And you know what? I was like, let me look. I'm like, let me see, New York. I'm like, where would that movie be? One theater in New York. And I mean, maybe this was,
I know it's been playing theatrically in the UK.
Well, yeah.
Not that you're going to take Chloe there, but.
No. Oh man. No, not, I mean, I would have planned for it, but I didn't know. I thought I was like, I really thought I'd be able to take her somewhere to go see it. And I'm really disappointed about that. And, it's unfortunate. So, not that anyone listening can do anything about that, but, I'm a little frustrated. But things that I have been watching that have been streaming. So, I think last time I talked about, Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Oh yeah. So good. I think that's my favorite of the year. And I actually do want to mention on the last episode, I was talking about how, this year there have been some movies that have come out that have been pretty exceptional. And I did mention Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. I also meant to mention Everything Everywhere All at Once, in addition to the documentary Fire of Love is one of my other favorites of the year.
What was that one?
Fire of Love?
Okay.
About the volcanologists, the Crofts, who died together in a volcano eruption.
Oh, okay.
Really, really stunning, narrated by Miranda July. It was directed by Sarah... I want to say Sarah Guest, but I don't know if that's correct, and I want to make sure that I get that right.
Well, while you're looking that up, and we're shouting out documentaries, I want to also shout out The Janes, which was, I know it was... Yeah. I may have talked about it earlier, but documentary about the underground network of...
Sarah Dosa.
Okay. Network of abortion providers in pre-Roe versus Wade Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
So late 60s, early 70s. And, I wish it wasn't as relevant, but
Right.
nonetheless,
Yeah.
it would still be very important to watch. I've been watching a few other movies. Granted, I've been watching them in kind of like bits and pieces, but I watched
Bits and pieces. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, Oingo Boingo. What?
Yeah.
I was listening
Weird
to Oingo
Science.
Boingo earlier. Love Oingo Boingo. The Wonder.
Oh,
I
on Netflix with Florence Pugh.
Yeah. Yes.
It's good?
So another entry, yes, Florence Pugh, it takes place in the 19th century. You know what it is? It's interesting, and without going into too much, the basic premise is Florence Pugh plays an English nurse who is brought to a small, I think, Welsh village. And she's kind of commissioned to take part in a watch. There's an 11-year-old girl who has not eaten for 4 months, and
Whoa.
she says, and she has not been, she does not seem affected by it, and she says that she's been sustained on manna from heaven. So she's become kind of like this, like a miracle, and, people come and travel to see her. And you could tell, like, there's a little bit of like, they kind of make you think like, oh, I wonder if there's like a grift going on, because people will be like,
Right.
oh, here's a donation. And it's that, Florence Pugh, what's her name? It's Libby, I guess is what she ends up going by, Mrs. Something. And you find out more about her background. That she's got some secrets, and that's they're revealed as the film as it goes by. But then you kind of have, she's convinced that there's some type of scam going on, like there's some way this kid is getting food. So she keeps, and like she splits the watch with this nun.
Okay.
Because the family's very religious, and the family's like, have to have a nun.
Gotta have a nun.
Gotta have a nun, So anyway, she's doing the watch, and she keeps adding these restrictions. And she's like, nope, for this to be a legit watch, like the family can't see her, like they can't be near her. And she gets like really, she's kind of getting like obsessive, and that as you learn more about her background, you're like, oh, okay, Florence Pugh, what are you, what's hiding? What's going on with you? And eventually, she figures it out. The girl at first the girl,
no spoilers, please.
No spoilers.
Okay.
But eventually, as things unravel, as things unfold, you find out more and more. So, it is an interesting film. I don't know that everyone would like it. There are certain choices made that one might be like, was that necessary? But it's not. It's very subtle.
Okay.
So, definitely worth checking out. Florence Pugh I think always makes interesting choices.
Totally.
I think she's had an intense year. I'm glad she's doing a Marvel. That was what I thought after watching The Wonder, and I'm just like, because it's a serious movie. That's not a spoiler. But I'm glad she gets to go. She's doing a Marvel. That's good.
Well, she did Black Widow. Is she doing another one?
Well, she's doing one where like they all she teams up with, I don't know who, like the Winter Soldier or whatever.
It's exhausting.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm like, but that's good for her. I'm like, I'm glad she's doing that.
Yeah, I trust her. She's doing what she's.
Don't Worry, Darling
was
it is
what it is.
That was intense. One more.
I read one more, but let's make it brief because I want to make sure that we get to the candidate.
I'm not even watching the clock. So, Banshees of Inisherin.
Yeah, I've been wanting to watch that. I've been hearing it's great.
It is, Martin McDonagh, great dialogue. There's a lot, I'm sure there's a lot more to it than meets the eye. I'm kind of like, I'd like to watch this again, but I don't know when I would like to watch this again. Colin Farrell, Brendan Gleeson, of course, are excellent.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the type of thing where, hey, if you like Irish dramas set in the early 20th century and Martin McDonagh dialogue, this is the movie for you.
That sounds like an endorsement. for a very specific set of people. But I've also just been hearing generally people like it. So, Dan, I saw something in the news on IndieWire, and I'm trying to think of how I want to ask you this question. Okay. So there is a sequel to a movie that we have covered on this podcast.
Oh, it's like a Jeopardy style question.
Yes.
Great. Good choice.
That is in, I guess, I don't know if they're in production or talks or whatever, but the director of Minari, Lee Isaac Chung, has been tapped to direct a sequel to which movie that we have covered on this podcast?
Oh, man. I feel like I've seen this. This has, like, come across.
Director Lee Isaac Chung, director of Minari, is tapped to direct the sequel to which movie that we have covered on this podcast?
I'm going to, rather than think about it, I'm just going to go with the first thing that popped into my mind. What is the Monster Squad?
No.
Yeah.
I'll give you two more guesses. Your first clue is that this is a film from the 1990s.
Okay.
Director Lee Isaac Chung, director of Minari.
What is what is Sister Act?
No, it is not
Would it be
Sister Act.
3?
It is not Sister Act.
No,
No,
not
but
Sister Act 3.
this is not one where I think that you would have heard of a sequel being in the talks of for this one. Director Lee Isaac Chung. Would you like another clue?
I would like another clue, please.
Okay, in this film, in the first film, I guess, in what will become a series, if things go according to plan, the actor Philip Seymour Hoffman is in this film.
Oh, Twister.
Twister is right.
Yes. Oh.
Very surprising
Like
choice.
Part 8? What?
Lee Isaac Chung, who knocked our socks off with Minari, an excellent, excellent movie. And
sorry, can I just correct myself? Philip Seymour Hoffman was not in Hard 8. That was Philip Baker Hall.
Oh, did you say Hard 8?
I shouted out Hard 8 as like the least likely 90s movie with Philip Seymour Hoffman to have a sequel, I guess.
Well, yeah. So Lee Isaac Chung, I think it's really exciting. I think that he is an excellent director, and I'd be really curious to see what he would do with Twister.
I don't know. I imagine there will be tornadoes involved.
I mean, it's a sequel. Does Helen Hunt come back?
I'm sure there will be a message about climate change and the intensification. Or maybe it'll be a prequel.
It was described as a sequel on IndieWire.
Okay.
And so Lee Isaac Chung, the Oscar-nominated director of Minari, is in talks to direct the sequel to the 1996 storm-chasing blockbuster Twister. An individual with knowledge of the project told IndieWire, if this deal closes, Chung would work from a script by The Revenant writer Mark L. Smith and a story from Top Gun Maverick director Joseph Kosinski.
So interesting because
Joseph Kosinski also doing another 30 years later.
No, but I was thinking about, because as we're thinking about, I'm like, I wonder if they do like a Top Gun Maverick type thing with like Helen Hunt being like Maverick, and like she has to come in and train like a new bunch, and like, does Carrie Elwes do like the Val Kilmer cameo? I'm turning it into Hot Shots. Sorry.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, remains to be seen. We'll see what happens. Universal Pictures with Amblin Entertainment are developing the sequel titled Twisters, which Steven Spielberg is executive producing.
Oh.
So, yeah, there's a lot more in this IndieWire
Is that
article.
how The Fabelmans ends?
The Fabelmans, okay, I will say the ending of The Fabelmans might be the only part that I liked. Not just because it was over and I could get on with my night.
Yeah, I'm not going to, I do have other questions, but I'm not going to ask more about it right now just because it's not that important.
So anyway, that's what I got. But you told me before that you have something else that you wanted to mention regarding our last episode.
Oh, just a quick one more thing on Sneakers, which, man, what a fun movie. But that, I don't need to say that. We all know that. But what I do want to say is that, I was thinking about the casting and I was like, man, River Phoenix like scores with this ensemble. And then I was like, well, wait a second. This was not his first time teaming with Sidney Poitier. They appeared together in 1998's Little Nikita, which, have you never seen that movie?
Wait, did you say that it's not his first time teaming up?
Right.
Wait,
Sneakers was not the first time River Phoenix and Sidney Poitier.
Do you mean 1988? I think you said 1998.
I do mean 1988.
Okay. That makes more sense.
I do not mean 98.
Okay.
That would be absurd. But anyway, this was a movie directed by Richard Benjamin, and it was where I think Sidney Poitier's like FBI or he's government agent and tells River Phoenix, or River Phoenix finds out that like his parents are like sleeper agents for the KGB. It's like the Americans.
Yeah.
So, what's it called? Like Sidney Poitier's character kind of becomes friends with River. I don't know. Anyway, I remember it being a good movie.
I want to check it out.
But yeah, I was like, wait a second. Yeah, Little Nikita.
Yeah. So
that's it.
Cool. Well, I feel like we need to launch into the candidate now. We've been yakking for 30 minutes.
Let's launch the campaign here. We want Bill. We want Bill.
So,
this is the worst slogan in the history of political campaigns.
I'm going to start off with a synopsis because I feel like this is one that maybe not a lot of people have seen. It is definitely one of the lesser talked about Robert Redford movies. And so, I'm just going to launch into it. So, during their search for a viable Democratic candidate for the California Senate, campaign manager Marvin Lucas taps the young, handsome, issues-driven Bill McKay, whose father had served as California's governor. Since the incumbent Republican senator is wildly beloved and guaranteed to win, Marvin tells Bill that he's allowed to say anything he'd like on the campaign trail, with the understanding that he'll lose. This bodes well for Bill. He doesn't want to be a politician, but he does want to spread his progressive messages. Over the course of his campaign, Bill falls deeper and deeper into the hype that he could actually win, which complicates his relationship with his wife, Nancy. And when Bill finally gets his father to join Team McKay, the poll numbers begin to get closer and closer. The pressure is on, and Bill now has to face his toughest issue yet. He may actually win the election. And so Robert Redford plays Bill McKay. Peter Boyle is Marvin Lucas. Melvin Douglas is former Governor John J. McKay, and we might remember him from being there. Mm-hmm. I think it's kind of cool that we've done more than one Melvin Douglas movie.
I know, right?
Yeah, we have Don Porter as Senator Crocker Jarman, such a great Republican, politician name. Karen Carlson is Nancy McKay. There's, you're going to recognize a lot of people in here. Michael Lerner is in there.
Oh yeah.
So it's a pretty exciting movie. You do have a lot of other like politicians in there, playing themselves. And, I don't know. I feel like it's an evergreen kind of topic that, there's always going to be these people who politicians, tap to like bring into the fold as potentially being able to, take a seat from the other party. And I feel like we kind of saw that recently in which it kind of failed with Herschel Walker. Thank goodness, but that was too close for comfort.
Indeed.
Yeah, and so, it's one of those things where this is a situation in which, at least from the perspectives of this particular podcast's hosts, this is the kind of thing that we like to see happen, even if it's a situation where they're just like, look, there's no way that anybody's going to beat Crocker Jarman. We may as well get somebody who's going to, benefit from this. Like, it actually comes from a place of wanting to do good. Like, the first time I saw this movie, Peter Boyle's character, Marvin, I kind of like missed a little bit. It has that kind of 70s movie pacing where you're just like, there's a lot of talking going on. Am I catching everything? Why does he want him to lose? Like, what's going on? And I kind of thought, like, does he have bad motives for this? Like, what exactly is going on? It's like, no, he needed somebody to run, and he just found somebody who he was like, you know what, this kid's actually pretty cool.
Like, he could at least get some headlines.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah.
And it'll be good for the party, yeah.
And apologies if I lost you there for a few moments.
Oh, I said a lot of really great stuff.
I'm so glad that you monologued and were not asking me anything because I would not have known. So apologies if I repeat anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. So interesting. This movie comes out in 1972. It's, Nixon's re-election year. And this was my first time seeing it.
Yeah, what'd you think? Didn't love it.
I thought it could have been better.
Well, of course it could have been better.
I don't know that Michael Ritchie was the right director for it. And I know it was, Robert Redford personally chose Michael Ritchie, who had directed Downhill Racer, a skiing drama with Robert Redford and Gene Hackman, that maybe we'll catch on our next, Redford spective.
Yeah.
We're going to be wrapping this one up with our next episode, but more on that later.
Maybe we'll do a series on ski movies.
On ski? Oh yeah. Oh yes. Oh yes. I know where you're going. With that. Anyway, getting back to Too Bad We've Already Done Better Off Dead.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah. Anyway, I felt that it was uneven. I felt the tone was uneven. I felt that it had its moments where it was like, there were things that just were not clear. About it, like there were issues that seemed to come up that didn't, like, what was why was his wife wearing a riding outfit
that was for a photo shoot thing,
and like,
yeah,
he didn't know it was happening.
All right, so I do agree that all the stuff that the issues that come up between he and his wife, I think, didn't play really that well, and there was also this element of this very mysterious woman with these kind of like tinted glasses who he has an affair with in a hotel, and it's like not even a thing. It's just kind of strange. And those things were kind of shoehorned in there where it's almost just like, we don't have enough tension. What else can we put in here that like builds a little bit of tension, but it didn't really play. Otherwise, it's just wall-to-wall issues, which honestly, right. I would have been fine with that. And I thought that what the things that I found interesting about it were the ways that they were trying to frame the different like media coverage that he was getting. And, when he's kind of talking about, or like talking to the people in the public and they're filming it for different campaign ads and stuff, the decision process that goes into that I found really interesting. And kind of the way that he starts to like crack towards the end when they're like racing to get onto this TV appearance and stuff. Like, I was like, that's exciting. Like frenzy.
That's the thing though. It had these moments where it was like, okay, what this movie maybe this was more in the editing. I don't know. Maybe it was more in the writing. The movie did win best original screenplay for at the Oscars that year. So for what that's worth, but I felt like there were those moments, and it's like, okay, maybe they're going to go in this direction. But then they don't. And in that respect, it reminded me a lot of another movie we've talked about, The Ides of March.
Yeah.
and where you have those questions of how much of your ideals do you surrender, kind of like the higher up
Right.
the political food chain you get, how much, like, you see there's that whole montage where he's like giving the same speech, and you'd never be able to get away with that today, because the speech would be
Everything
on the
is recorded. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, and everyone would see it. But where he's, it's what, early 1970s, he's going around and giving the same speech all the time, and then you see him in the back, in like when he's in the limo, and it's like that payoff when he's in the back of the limo, and I wonder how much of that was scripted, how much of that was just like Redford riffing.
Well, yeah, that's funny, because when I was watching it, I was like, I wonder if he was actually just like rehearsing, and they were just like, turn the camera on, like that kind of
Right.
thing. But but it totally works in the story, where it's like, he's become this robot, this politician now, where he's not saying anything new. He's just repeating the same things over and over again that are rehearsed. And what, like, the times when Bill like really shines are when he kind of goes off script and he really shakes things up. The debate is fantastic.
The debate is fire.
Yeah. And it's so great because you can see Crocker Jarman getting all sweaty and nervous.
Like
and
Sorkin level. That, you know what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's, and I feel like this movie could have been a victim to, post-production studio notes where it's just like, where's the sex? Where's the intrigue? That kind of a thing, where they're just like, all right, well, we have to sacrifice this for that. And I would have preferred to have seen maybe some sort of scene between Bill and Nancy, where it's more of a conversation of just like having to make that decision of like, I didn't want to get into this. I was just doing this to support, I don't know, the organization I was working with before. It seemed like he kind of worked at like a nonprofit or something. And
like a law office. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. And it was very Dave-esque in that way.
Right. Yes. Yes.
And he didn't want to become a politician. He didn't want to become his father.
Right.
And I really feel like there's a missed opportunity to actually give him the opportunity to vocalize his frustration with like, having to make the decision, like, do I continue and potentially actually become a senator? Is that what I want? Is that what's going to be best for me? Or is it to the point now where it doesn't matter what's best for me because maybe that's what's best for California? So
and there's another, like, one of those another like fantastic moment in this movie that shows the potential is towards the end when his father, like, kind of puts his arm around him and says, you're a politician.
Yeah.
And you see the look on his face, and I'm like, it's Dustin Hoffman at the end of The Graduate, which is ironic because the studio wanted Robert Redford in The Graduate.
Well,
but that, and I was like, oh shit, that's where it should end. And like, that's,
and I don't really want to give away the ending. I mean, it came out 50 years ago, so it's almost kind of like you had your chance. But the ending actually does give you that Graduate moment.
Yes.
Like,
and then he kind of gets sucked up into the crowd, into the current. Yeah.
It's, he's getting pulled away.
It's a great ending. That's I wish that the rest of the movie was kind of more on that level.
Yeah, I do feel like when this movie is strong, it's really strong. And then the other times it's like, it's just not hitting the mark. And for me, and this goes to something that I was talking about, I think, on the last episode, where there are so many of these Robert Redford roles in which he plays this like confident person that you really get behind. And and it's, this is before All the President's Men, and you just see a lot of like that type of Woodward character coming out in this.
Integrity.
Yeah, absolutely. Integrity. And you just want to get behind this guy. And there's just something about him that you feel like you're in good hands with him. And I don't know. And because his character is somebody who's really for the people, like he really wants to show him, like, you know, show this video footage of himself, like in this clinic where he's trying to like help these people out, but, you know, just doesn't really play for the camera as well. But like he really cared about those things that were happening. And, you know, it's the other people who kind of bring him in the other direction for optics.
Right, yeah. And, you know, a couple of moments that I want to come back to is when he's in the back of the limo. And it's this moment where, I don't know if this was for you, but in the back of my head the whole time as they're pushing him as this, like, you know, the man of the people and everything, it's like, yes, but no, because he was the son of the governor, and like he, you know, was privileged. And that scene in the back of the limo where he's rattling off all of these things that I'm like, you know, that's meaningful. Like he's talking about, you know, addressing racism in America. And he's just saying it like he's like practicing his lines for the millionth time. And I'm like, man, like that's the privilege is coming out there. And it's like, it's this really interesting thing that maybe tells me that, you know, there's more on the editing room floor to this movie.
He's having a bit of like a crisis of conscience where he's being pulled in these two different directions, you know, really saying what he wants to say. And then it's like saying the rehearsed, planned out lines that ultimately mean the same thing on paper, but like really don't, because it's not coming from the heart in the same way.
Right.
And there was one moment that and this is towards the beginning, once he finally starts, you know, getting out there amongst the people and they're filming him just kind of being in the community, when they're trying to tell him to like go play basketball with these kids who are, you know, these black kids playing basketball, and they see this white man who's well-dressed coming towards them, and all these cameras, and the kids run away. And that's
hello,
something,
youngsters.
Yeah, and it's just something that, like, you know, they don't go into it. There's not a moment where it's just like, where'd they go? Like, how come they ran away? Like, don't they know that I'm the good guy? But it's almost like this film, what I appreciate about it is that it does give the audience the opportunity to fill in the blanks with those types of moments. And I'm glad that they didn't like really hit us over the head with just like, what's wrong? Don't you know I'm here to help? Like the white savior thing.
Well, of course not. But I feel like there's these little like threads that are left dangling.
Yeah.
You know, there's like this weird moment. There's like that one campaign aide who's like the blonde.
Yeah, something weird about that guy.
There's like a weird. Was he supposed to be like Peter Boyle's son or something?
Oh, I didn't get that impression.
I don't know. There was something weird with him, and then there was this weird moment with like someone who had like worked with McKay at the law firm,
right? And between those two, those two people,
right? There's an encounter there, but there's also the encounter with McKay where he's like, "Hey, man, I think you're really gonna do it," and like, you know, hey, yeah, it's all bullshit, but right, you know, and Redford is like left shaken, you know, like he just like shook hands with a would-be assassin, not to make light of that type of thing, but I'm like, what's missing? It almost feels like it should be a Robert Altman film. And I know that Altman, you know, later did, you know, a political series. I'm blanking on the name right now, but it almost feels like it's trying to be Altman-esque, which it's made right after MASH. So
yeah, I think that also this is, you know, Ritchie as a director. The only thing that I really know of his is Bad News Bears. The only thing that like I really actually know, you know, and I think that it, you know, there was an element of getting involved with something that's a little bit more trendy of a film to be making, something that's more political, because this is a time in Hollywood where this is kind of like right after, there's a big shift in the way that films are being made. The studio system has changed a lot. And there's people that are taking more risks with the kinds of movies that they're making and the kinds of messaging that they're trying to get across.
And if I may, John, I just doing a little research here, would like to kind of broaden your Michael. You might not remember, but Michael Ritchie also directed Fletch and Fletch Lives. He also directed The Golden Child with Eddie Murphy, Wildcats with Goldie Hawn.
Okay, that's fair. Okay, so I've maybe seen The Golden Child more than I've seen any of his other movies.
The Scout. He works well in sports films. As I'm looking through his IMDb filmography, I feel like his best movies, he did Diggstown, 92.
I like Diggstown.
I love Diggstown. It's one of my James Woods passes where I'm like, I think I can watch it without wanting to punch him. Anyway, but if you look at his filmography, this is something kind of different for him.
Yeah, I mean, I think that with Fletch, clearly it's a very different tone of a movie. But it's also...
I think this movie was missing a Harold Faltermeyer score.
Yeah, right. Well, and I'll say Fletch, but not Fletch Lives, because Fletch Lives is it's that one, the whole musical number. The
Fletch Lives. We've talked. It's in the archives. Fletch Lives is problematic.
Fletch itself, I think that there are some more elements of the nobody trying to do good, that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
And, I because in the original Fletch, there's a little bit more going on with, his employer at the paper and everything. And so anyway, but I think that, and also it's just like the 70s of it all, the 70s. And what year did Fletch come out? Was that early 80s?
85.
85. Wow. Feels older than that. I don't know why. Anyway.
I don't know why either.
But I don't know. I think that The Candidate is one where it really feels like Michael Ritchie trying to do something different, trying to get his thoughts out there. I think that when it comes to these movies that have these political agendas, we mentioned Being There, Melvin Douglas in Being There, and just Hal Ashby making these political statements without it maybe
Ashby would have been
Hal Ashby would have been awesome at this, but making political statements without making it feel like there's all these political statements being made. I think that Being There is a little bit more on the nose, but then there's something like The Landlord with Beau Bridges that's really about like gentrification and race and in the inner cities. And I think that somebody like Hal Ashby was saying a lot more by putting it in a different way. And Michael Ritchie, I think, was going for a more straightforward move, but this to me very much reads of like there were decisions that were out of his control that made this a little bit different. And I will even say that the poster for this movie, where it's Robert Redford in front of an American flag blowing a bubble, feels like that was a studio decision to make it more sellable, because it makes it seem more just like he's just a kid. He's just a whippersnapper.
He's not taking this seriously.
I know, but the character himself, Bill McKay, it's like, he's not a kid. It's almost like that's a smear campaign by the Jarman campaign or something. Like, it's like a smear ad trying to say like he's just a little kid. And so I think that this movie suffers from studio over involvement, and I have nothing to back that up other than just theory. So
my only like devil's advocate, I guess, to that is that I think Redford was a producer on this, and I don't know how much pull he would have had at this point, but I don't know.
It's hard. Yeah. Hard to say.
Anyway, you know, it's all speculation. So I don't know, John. You know, we talked about other political movies like Ides of March, being more current. You know, what are your ideas? What are your thoughts?
I think that it would be great to remake this, and I love the idea of it just being like, look, we've got no chance of winning this. We've got to run somebody. Let's just swing for the fences here and like put in a complete wild card. Like, I love that idea. And I think that it's, like I said, it's evergreen. It makes sense at all times. And honestly, you could set it today. You could set it back in the 70s again. You could set it in the 1870s. Like, there are a lot of different ways that this could be done. Hey, 1770s. You know, maybe not so much. It's like George Washington's a total lock. I don't know about that. But anyway, like I think that there's a real opportunity to, I don't know, make this, turn this into something else, do it again, call it The Candidate, still do the same thing. But I feel like we have filmmakers now and studios now who are better able to take risks and to, you know, get their messages across without, you know, the hesitation of the studios being like, we're going to divide our audiences if this happens or if that happens, or if there's not a scene of implied sexual activity, then we're toast. You know, there's always going to be something, but I feel like we have a better chance now of making this movie in a way that feels a little bit better. But honestly, it's like the 1972 of it all. I love I know that you had some problems with the pacing, but like I feel like there's some moments where it just feels so 1972. It feels like really cool the way that it's presented. That's personal preference. I really enjoy that kind of vibe, and I don't know. I just think that there's a cool way of doing this again. And I don't have any thoughts on directors or actors exactly, but there are so many capable directors and actors who could do this. What do you think?
So, well, first of all, my thought on I guess, you know, I don't know about an ideal filmmaker. There's certainly a lot of filmmakers who would do, you know, depending on what direction you went into. But I felt like, ironically, Adam McKay would.
Well, I was thinking Adam McKay as well, which is really funny.
This is kind of his cup of tea. Although I also feel like, you know, I might want to see, you know, we talked about the director of Minari.
Lee Isaac Chung.
You know, I mean, I'm not saying him specifically, but I'm saying like, you know, a new filmmaker and kind of trusting like a filmmaker with a, you know, kind of like a filmmaker like Adam McKay, you know, doesn't just like, you know, pick a script out of a pile that he's going to, I don't think so. No, he, you know, is involved in the development,
right.
You know, writes the scripts and everything. So I think I would want, I would want it to be somebody like that, doing it. I had a couple of other ideas, and another movie that it made me think of, another political movie that it made me think of, 1998's Bulworth. You know, directed by, starring Warren Beatty. You know, similar. He's the incumbent here, and you know, in this case. And anyway, that's a complicated movie to get into, but the idea of a candidate kind of like picking up steam by going, you know, by swerving and going in an unexpected direction. You know, that's just it's a fun story to tell, I think. One of my ideas was, like, could it be a sequel where it takes place, and I don't know which election it would be, but like McKay's running for president, and I don't know, you'd figure out the time because you just have Brad Pitt as McKay. Okay. And Um, there you go. You do the ages right. You cast Brad Pitt, and like he's in the 1992 primary. You know, I also thought maybe a musical. Because I was trying to think, I'm like, are there musicals like this? I'm like, what are like? Yes, there's Hamilton, 1776, but and I was thinking about, and honestly, it's because like Frost Nixon was turned into an opera,
Right? Yeah.
and I was thinking, I was like, this would be really interesting, like debate scenes between, like, you know, with all of the different campaign managers and all of the different, like the scene where the guy is, they're talking about like a motorcade, which I can't believe they were talking about that in, you know, only within 10 years of the Kennedy assassination. But
right.
when the guy's trying to give the instructions, the chart keeps falling, food delivery comes, they're trying to figure
scene.
out. Imagine that in a musical. That's money right there. So I thought that would be, I thought that like, you know, that would be fun. So I consulted because, during
Is this your fun surprise?
Yeah, this is my fun surprise. So recently, you know, I've had a little time off, and of course, you know, a lot of the buzz over the past couple of weeks recently has been this, you know, chatbot, ChatGPT.
Oh,
and because it came to my attention because I'm an English language arts teacher, and there's all of these articles popping up in places like the Atlantic, be like, is this the end of the essay? And
right.
so I was playing around with it, and I thought to myself, I'm like, oh, let's see what ChatGPT has to say if I ask it to pitch a sequel to The Candidate.
And
The Candidate, the next campaign, follows the story of Jim Ryan, a successful politician who has just been reelected to his third term as governor. However, despite his success, Jim is feeling burnt out and disillusioned with the political system. When he is approached by a group of political strategists with a plan to revolutionize the way campaigns are run, Jim is skeptical but intrigued. As he embarks on a new campaign for the presidency, Jim must navigate the challenges and controversies of modern politics while trying to stay true to his values. Along the way, he's faced with tough decisions and tough choices as he tries to balance his personal beliefs with the demands of the campaign. As he travels the country and meets with voters, Jim begins to see firsthand the issues that are most important to Americans and the changes they want to see in the world. He also discovers that the political strategists he is working with have their own agendas, and he must decide whether to trust them or follow his own instincts. As the campaign heats up and the stakes get higher, Jim must confront his own doubts and fears and decide whether he has what it takes to lead the country. Can he stay true to his principles and emerge as a leader in a political landscape that is increasingly divisive and polarized? The Candidate, the next campaign, is a thought-provoking and timely sequel that explores the complexities of modern politics and the challenges of leadership in the 21st century.
wow.
So, I know what you're thinking. Is that really a sequel? Or is that more of a remake?
Yeah.
Well, no, because its pitch for a remake is as follows.
Oh my God.
In The Candidate, we follow the story of Max Adams, a young and ambitious political strategist who is tasked with managing the campaign of a charismatic but inexperienced candidate for the U.S. Senate. As Max guides her candidate through the rough and tumble world of
Maxine.
Of modern politics, she must navigate a complex web of competing interests and deal with the constant pressure to win at any cost. As the campaign heats up and the stakes get higher, Max is forced to confront her own values and decide what she is willing to sacrifice in the pursuit of victory. Along the way, she must confront difficult questions about the role of money in politics and the ethics of political campaigning. As she grapples with these challenges, Max is aided by a diverse and talented team of advisors, each with their own strengths and weaknesses. Together, they must navigate the complex landscape of modern politics and find a way to emerge victorious in the face of fierce competition. The Candidate is a timely and provocative remake that explores the high-stakes world of modern politics and the personal and professional challenges faced by those who work in the field. With a diverse and talented cast and a compelling narrative, this film is sure to engage and inspire audiences of all ages.
Wow.
And I know what you're wondering. Did I ask
Can you make it shorter?
Can I make it? No. I did ask, and it probably could. If I said could,
Yes.
if I gave it a word limit, it would.
Yeah.
It did kind of repeat those formulas when I was like, oh, pitch a musical based on The Candidate, and it just like kind of changes the end with toe tapping, showstoppers. So anyway, I thought that would be a fun little...
What a fun surprise.
But that's word for word, copied and pasted.
Wow.
Like, I did not change a single thing.
Wow.
Yeah, so scary, right?
Yeah, and you said a word in there that made me... it reminded me of something, but it made me think about an actual a director that I think would be able to handle a remake quite well. And the word that you said was field. And I thought about Nick Nightingale himself, Todd Field, who directed Tar recently.
Did you see that?
I did see it. It's excellent.
Oh.
And it's very tense, and it has a great pace to it. And I feel like Todd Field would be an excellent director to handle such a remake. And you know what? We're talking Maxine. Let's get Cate Blanchett in there. Team the two of them back up.
I mean, wow, yeah. But I mean, I don't know. Yeah, why not? I don't know. Max Adams. This is a role for Florence Pugh. I feel like Maxine should be the candidate. Or not Maxine, Cate Blanchett should be the candidate.
You think so?
And well, because it's young and ambitious political studies.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
all right, you're thinking Pugh. Okay.
Up and comer. So I'm thinking Pugh, but I'm also thinking like this is a different Pugh. She does not need to wear like ankle length dresses and bonnets. So
you know who I would like? Let me look up her name. I'm thinking young and ambitious. And let me pull this up really quick. Ayo Edebiri, who played Sydney on The Bear.
I didn't see that. Hold on.
The Bear is a great show on Hulu.
I'm gonna have to check it out.
Yeah,
the guy from The Bear is playing the late professional wrestler Kerry Von Erich in A24's Iron Claw.
I saw that he was doing some sort of wrestling thing. And so,
he's playing Kerry the Texas Tornado himself. All right. So I'm sorry. So The Bear. Okay, I'm looking this up right now.
Yeah, the character's name is Sydney, and the actress's name is Ayo Ayo Edebiri, Edebiri.
Yeah.
I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And she's really excellent. I would love to see her in a role like this. She's just kind of popping up on the scene. She's been in a few things here and there, but really The Bear was like a big breakout performance, and caught my attention big time. She was fantastic.
I'm going to check that out, but I'm all for let's give someone a boost, give them the Cate Blanchett rub,
Yeah. Exactly. So, I think that we've got some good choices here, and I thank Chat GPT for its suggestions as well.
Wow. Yeah. I could another time. I could share other things that it produced. So quite frightening
Yikes.
and phenomenal at once. But anyway, let's talk about our next episode. Which is
wrapping up our Fort Red border extravaganza.
We've reached the border of Fort Red border, and a lot of options, a lot of things, and just like kind of shouting out other movies like River Runs Through It and The Horse Whisperer, and I know that there's other movies, Legal Eagles,
Ordinary People.
Ordinary People. A lot of Redford movies that we didn't get around to, but this is going to be our last episode of 2022, and it's a movie that's going to be celebrating its 50th anniversary next year, and that would be 1973's The Sting, reuniting Fort Red Border with New Paulman. I don't know. I had nothing else.
New Paulman.
I didn't plan that one. So all right.
It's the same. It's an anagram. And also the director.
Yeah, George Roy Hill. Coming back from Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Don't know how I blanked on that. Yeah. Such a great cast in this movie. Robert Shaw, Ray Walston, Harold Gould, Eileen Brennan, and many, many more. I can't wait to talk about it. It's one of my, it's in my top, definitely in my top 20.
Cool.
And it was definitely a priority when I first, was upgrading to Blu-ray. One of those movies that was a priority for me. It's beautiful.
Great.
So excited to talk about The Sting on our next episode.
I am very excited, Dan, and as you are running for Senate, I wish you a good journey.
Good journey.